Yo, Rome here. Absolutely thrilled to bring you this video today. This video is going to be an in-depth breakdown of how I went from quitting my six-figure job at IBM to 23K a month in high-ticket remote sales. It's been one hell of a journey, and I wanted to share it with you so you can learn, implement, and get the exact same results. Now, if you're watching this video, don't pause and go anywhere else, because if you watch this through and through, I truly believe you'll have a clear-cut, no-nonsense roadmap of how you can go and do the exact same thing and consistently make 20K a month in under 90 days. Completely remotely, by the way, working from anywhere around the world, and assuming you're coming in with no experience. Now let's dive right in. This case study is about how I went from quitting my six-figure corporate job to selling for the biggest online coaches in the world, which led me to making 23K a month in under 90 days. And this is with zero prior sales experience and doing absolutely zero cold calling or prospecting, all while being an introvert. This is my income graph from 2020 to 2021. I started in June part-time, then I went full-time in July, and as you guys can see, I made just a little bit over 23K in my third month and took a little dip because I actually took a step back from closing and into a leadership role and started building a team. And as you can see, started to pay off. And before we go any further, let me introduce myself. My name is Rome, like the city, and you probably haven't seen me online or heard of my name, and that's by design. See, I'm not your typical guru selling courses and doing these webinars all the time. I actually do quite the opposite. I don't push webinars, I don't run ads. In fact, all of the work that I do is behind the scenes. And when I say behind the scenes, it's a little bit ironic because the people that I work with are actually all over your newsfeed. Whether it's business coaches, online fitness trainers, or some of the biggest influencers selling some sort of training. It's very likely that those are some of the online coaches that myself and my agency run sales for. And this isn't your typical kind of sales where you hard close people into something they don't want to buy, right? Or the kind of sales that gives salespeople a bad name. Or even the kind of sales where you have to make hundreds of dollars a day hoping to speak with somebody with a tiny bit of interest towards what you are offering. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's called remote online closing. And in the next little bit, I'm gonna show you exactly how I was able to land a fully remote closing role with no prior sales experience, how I was able to see high commissions so quickly, and how you can take the same steps that I did to get similar results. Now, for all of you guys watching this, close your tabs, put your phone on D&D, and pay very close attention. So, now that we got that out of the way, let me tell you who this training is for, right? If you're looking to increase your income from 10 to 30K a month in commissions in the next 90 days, keep watching. If you want complete time and location freedom while being able to earn top 1% income, this is for you. And if you're an experienced sales rep or closer struggling to find reputable high-ticket offers with packed calendars and warm leads, then keep watching. Now, let me tell you who this document isn't for. If you're looking for passive income, this isn't for you. If you're looking for a side hustle you can do 2 hours a week, then click away. If you're not coachable and ready for training, this isn't for you. And if you're uncomfortable dealing with wealthy prospects and large deal sizes, this isn't for you. Now, if you plan on building a career as a remote closer and you follow this exact formula I'm about to share with you, you too may be able to create similar results for yourself in a very short period of time and reap the rewards of the most unsaturated online opportunity of the next couple of years. But let me be totally honest with you. So if you take your time, I don't know how long this window of opportunity will last. So if you take your money, time, and future seriously, make sure you stick around. Now, before we get into the details of the case study, I'll quickly show you some proof of the statement above so you know I actually did this. Again, this is actually my screenshot of the back end of my invoicing dashboard. As you guys can see, started part-time, made 4,500 bucks, went full-time the next month, started working on my weaknesses. Again, took a leadership role, took a step back from closing, built my team, and paid off tremendously. This is the same industry that rescued me from my failing businesses and unshackled the chains of my dreadful 9-to-5. And it allowed me to make 23K in less than 90 days and even almost $360,000 in my second year, more than my best friend who is actually a liver transplant doctor who studied for 15 years of his life. And what I learned very quickly after jumping into the space is that it's not about what your education is. It's not about how experienced you are. And it's not even about how smart or talented you are. The single most important thing for pretty much anything you try to make money with is the vehicle you are using to make money. It's not how hard you row, it's what boat you're on. Famous quote from Warren Buffett. And in our case, the coach you are selling for is far more important than how strong your skills are. Now, don't get me wrong. If you don't work on your skills, the opportunity won't last and you won't be in a position to take full advantage of it. However, skill is certainly not the most important factor. And in this video, I'm gonna be talking to you about this fast-growing, multi-billion-dollar per year industry in desperate need of closers like you and I. And it allowed Pamphil, a socially awkward 23-year-old, to make 11K in his first 30 days. This is an invoice. This is actually his invoice. And it also allowed Zach, a burnt-out sales rep selling something he previously had no interest in, to make 20K a month in under 120 days, selling something he actually genuinely loves. And this is the back end of his invoicing dashboard. And Sham, an 18-year-old, shout out Sham. He's an 18-year-old college student to make 2-3K a week and is already on track to clearing 100K by the end of the year. And not only these three individuals, but we've worked with hundreds of closers and helped them achieve the goals in remote closing over these years. This is actually a picture of our remote sales team. This is myself, my business partner Dylan, Misha, Aman. This picture was taken in at our mastermind event in Miami earlier this year. And this was another one at our mastermind event in Toronto at our home office. And guys, what you see here is just a fraction of the students' wins and lives we changed and helped them achieve their goals in sales. While industries like insurance, solar, or any of these traditional sales could not come anywhere close, because it would take years of slaving away before you could even come close to these kinds of results. But it wasn't always like this. And for me to actually explain how this whole space works, let me take a minute to share with you what my past life looked like and how I even stumbled upon this in the first place. Rome wasn't built in a day. I grew up in Kuwait from age 6 to 18, and it was a tough time. I was constantly bullied for being a foreigner and always felt unworthy and almost like an alien, making me super insecure when I was young. For close to a decade, I dealt with this bullying, always feeling anxious. I'd often hide in my room and play video games when people visited my house. But in 10th grade, I found friends who went through similar experiences, and we decided to stand up to the bullies, and that changed everything. The bullying stopped, but the emotional scars remain. I have no pictures to show you guys. I actually had no phone in high school. I wasn't a great student. Averaging C's and D's was a norm. I even failed my last year of high school, but I decided to start fresh in Canada and redo grade 12 over there. In September of 2013, I went and did grade 12 again. You would think, coming to a brand new school, not only in a different city, but a whole different country, it will be nothing far from horrendous. It was the best year of school I've ever experienced. And on my first day, I remember I walked into math class and this guy named Kareem waved his hand and called me to sit next to him. We instantly clicked and he introduced me to the whole school. I finally had friends who didn't care where I was from. Kareem and I became best friends. We studied together, pulled all-nighters, and went to prom together. He wasn't my date, but you know what I mean. A year later, we graduated high school and planned to study engineering. Just a month before we were supposed to start, Kareem had a bad car accident, and he passed away a few days later. It was heartbreaking. I had never lost anyone at this point. This is Kareem and I being goofs in chemistry lab. I made a promise to Kareem that I'd finish university for the both of us, and I kept that promise. University was a good experience overall, but being shy and my insecurities from high school still held me back socially. I wanted to make more friends and enjoy life more, but those old feelings were hard to shake. In late 2017, I graduated with a Bachelor of Engineering and got my first job as a network engineer at IBM. And on paper, it seemed like I had it all. A good income, stable job. This was actually my first day at work, and I was absolutely stoked. A year went on, and it's now 2018, and I started to realize that I'm holding back on a lot of things. Less outings, less dinners with friends, less fun, and less time. And I quickly realized that the reason for that was simply not making enough money to pay bills and actually live my life. I reflected on the year and it opened my eyes that if I wanted to make real money, not just pay the bills money, but generational wealth money, then I had to get out of the rat race. I had to stop listening to society about this facade. We were told we have to go to college, get in debt like I did, be an engineer, make 100K, and be happy. Well, I've been there and I've done that, and it was nothing but a golden cage trapping my dreams and potential. I realized I had two options. I would rather start my own business or get into sales. And since sales terrified me, I started a business. Makes no sense, I know. This is actually the last day I was at IBM. I actually never seen any of these ladies or gentlemen after that day. Shout out to everybody if you're watching this. Hope you're doing amazing. And as one would, I tried e-commerce, drop shipping, Amazon FBA, even trading stocks, but nothing worked. Everyone told me to go back to IBM, and what I did was a mistake, and I don't blame them. 9 to 5 was all that they knew, and I already tasted freedom. And guess what? Your friends and family are not gonna support you in starting a new business. Get over it. They're just gonna tell you what they think, and it's not because they want anything bad for you. They just don't know any better. I've always wanted to get into sales, but I had no experience, and more importantly, it terrified me. However, I knew that sales is not only the highest paid profession, but if I learned the skill, I would improve my communication and people skills and would finally start getting my way in life more, personal and professional. So that's when I started reaching out to sales trainers online. Having zero experience and not knowing what a good offer looks like, I applied to work with this influencer who seemed legit from the surface. He had a big social media following and promised me hot leads, an amazing product, and a juicy compensation structure. Probably a lot of the things you've heard in your first sales job. And so I was sold. And I was convinced that if I went all the way with that company, I'd be well on my way to freedom. And I found out a month later that that opportunity wasn't what it seemed to be. There was no sales process in place, no leads to dial, and I was told to purchase leads on a website called Scope Leads. These leads were colder than my ex's heart. That's when I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I saw the massive opportunity in the online sales world, but I needed to find someone who was already established in the industry who could help me navigate a big time career. Soon after, in early 2020, I got a DM on Instagram from my best friend, Sammy, who forwarded me Dylan's story. Dylan is a well-known sales leader. He was looking for closers to train and hire in his agency. Little did I know this would be the turning point of my life. More on that later. This was right around the time where the trend of entrepreneurs, influencers, selling online programs and mentorships was starting to take off massively. They were selling e-commerce, real estate, trading, fitness, mindset, dating offers, you name it. Keep in mind, this was before the term high ticket closer even existed. And those influencers would sell these programs for $5,000, $10,000, even $25,000 a pop. And us closers would make 10% off of that. After doing some digging, I figured out that if I could close one deal and make $500 on a single phone call in under 30 minutes, I realized that I just found the biggest gold mine of the decade. I don't have to run a business. I don't have to manage a team. There's no customer support. All I have to do is just wake up, check my calendar, and close deals and collect $500 to $2,000 every single day. Dylan took me under his wing and trained me for a few weeks to get the sales basics down. I had basically been practicing a script word for word that would then use to close over 2.5 million in sales in my first year. In fact, I still use this framework that I included in this presentation that you can take away and use. You're welcome. Then it was time for me to get dialing. Dylan had given me the opportunity to close for a 9-figure entrepreneur named Ty Lopez. This picture above shows the famous viral ad, Here in My Garage by Ty Lopez. If you know, you know. Yes, you heard that right. In fact, I was Ty Lopez's first high ticket closer. Before then, he was running ads online with no sales team in place, still making a lot of money. In my first month, I made $4,500 on part-time hours. In my second month, I went full-time and made $16,000. And in my third month, it was over $23,000. And I only talked to qualified leads who were ready to buy with zero cold calling. This is actually a picture of me depositing my second check of $16,000 in my Scotiabank. I remember this day. I was bouncing off the walls. I even remember every step I took walking to that Scotiabank. At this point, I dropped all my other side hustles and started working more hours because there was no shortage of leads. And why not make more money while I can, right? 12-hour days, 6 days a week, doing calls out of my bedroom. Ty Lopez started scaling his advertising budget like crazy. And we brought on 5 new closers on our team in a matter of months. I quickly became the manager of the offer we were selling on and was asked to come into the office and start training the new closers we were bringing to this contract. This image above was taken by one of my mentors at the time when I was training the new closers for the new offer I sold on. By the end of 2020, we were consistently doing $1 million months in high ticket online sales. We made Tai Lopez so much money that he flew to see the team here in our Toronto office. The thing is, online entrepreneurs like Tai were absolute experts in their respective niches, but they had no idea how to build and manage and scale high-performing commission sales teams. We made so much money doing this, we got to travel the world, rent yachts in Miami, do speaking events, and upgraded our toys, which I'll show you towards the end of the video. And this is actually around the time where I partnered up with Dylan, my business partner, Misha, Aman. It was one hell of a journey, it still is. And at that time, we saw a massive industry about to explode and a huge need for coaches who needed high-performing sales teams. We started an agency developing sales talent and building sales teams for the biggest online coaches in the world. We quickly became the only sales agency partnering up with these kinds of offers. The industry started to take notice and we started taking on more and more offers and contracts to sell for. At this point, our reputation for scaling sales teams and developing top-tier sales talent was unquestionable. We had hundreds of closers closing for dozens of high-ticket offers across literally every niche you can think of, each of which was doing anywhere between 100K months to $1 million months. 2 years later in 2022, we found ourselves in a situation where the demand for closers from coaches far exceeded the number of available closers. The term high-ticket closer, remote closer were popping up everywhere, and with ambitious individuals running ads promoting bold income claims. The entire industry was filled with people who might have good sales training, but once the training was done, they would refer you to join a Facebook group to go find a job. Sadly, most of these individuals lacked any proven track record working with quality offers. The only path to substantial earnings as a closer lies in selling for a well-established and validated offer, period. And here's the problem. The kind of company that provides their closers six-figure earning potential, the only offer you should ever even consider selling for, do not hire from their DMs or Facebook groups or job postings. And anyone that claims that this is a viable strategy, they're just trying to cater to the majority who just don't understand how the industry works. And after building sales teams for some of the biggest coaches in the world, generating tens of millions of dollars in phone sales on their behalf, I've decided to reveal exactly how the average person with zero experience can prepare themselves for this quality of a placement and position themselves for an incredibly lucrative and rewarding career as a fully remote closer. Here's how. The 3 reasons a closing role like this can be so lucrative is 1, you sell 3 to 25K packages at 10 to 15% commission. 2, you speak only with warm inbound leads that typically spend $50 to $300 upfront before they even talk to you. And by the way, you're not talking to new leads, you're talking to current customers. And 3, a typical full-time closer gets 10 to 15 of these leads on their calendar every single day. It can be extremely lucrative for the closer, but also very expensive for the business owner. That is the main reason why these big-time offers don't hire closers off the street. They need you to perform to standard for them to be profitable. For the rest of the video, I'm gonna be breaking down exactly how you can master the sales conversation quickly, land a placement like the one mentioned above, and set yourself up for a long-lasting career. And by following the exact steps and strategies that I followed, while also avoiding the mistakes I've done so you don't have to. We call this process the Millionaire Closer Framework. It worked so well for me that within the 3 months of learning sales for the first time, I was able to begin selling for one of the biggest coaches in the world, close over $430,000 in sales and earning a little over $43K in commissions. The Millionaire Closer Framework is our playbook built through years of trial and error from our own experience and hundreds of our sales reps' experience, all compiled into one robust strategy that can be repeated and implemented by anyone to produce massive commissions. Now I decided to break it all down for you. In the following steps, I'll outline the entire process of what I did to accomplish these results. And I wanna put this out there so you can use our playbook to start your career as a remote closer and make a minimum of 20K a month in the next 90 days, no matter what your background is. Now, here are the specific step-by-step stages that I took in order to get there. And if you follow these steps and implement them properly It is literally impossible to mess this up and not have a wildly successful career as a closer in 2023 and beyond. This is our Millionaire Closer Framework. Step 1 is training, step 2 placement, and step 3 is continued growth. So training, 2 parts to mastering the sales conversation, applying the 10-step Millionaire Closer Framework in every conversation, which we will get to in a second. B, role-playing every possible sales conversation you can get. And 2, placement is landing a client to sell their offer. 3, continued growth, 3 parts, taking more calls, so putting in more reps. B, turning your weaknesses into strengths. And C, creating a long-term career as a closer. And so, as you can see, as you gain a broader perspective on this journey and recognize the priorities at each stage, mastering high-ticket sales becomes a matter of momentum and repetition, not constantly trying to figure out what your next steps should be. Because as you practice and get better, you will suck less and your confidence will go through the roof and you'll make more money, you'll get noticed and be given even more opportunity to blow past 30, 50K months. Now let's explore how my mentor Dylan optimized each stage of the process for myself and the hundreds of closers that came after, allowing myself and them to leave our 9-to-5s and make multiple 6 figures, leading fulfilling and exciting careers. Here it is, 1A, applying the MC framework. This is literally your golden ticket to any sales call that you can have in your future, even if you struggle with social interactions. And before I started with Dylan in my old sales role, by the way, I'd spent a grueling few months grinding as an uptight, anxious salesperson, sounded like a robot than a genuine communicator. And my daily routine involved reciting a sales script, then employing the numbers game strategy, dialing as many leads as possible in the hopes of closing more deals. And this approach led to a multitude of burnt out leads, countless wasted hours of follow-ups, and an avalanche of rejections and brokey commission earnings. So here's how Dylan helped me fix this. Number 1, I had a completely new sales structure crafted for me that allowed me to be myself and to constantly and predictably close deals. And this was done intentionally, by the way, to increase the prospect's urgency, find pain points, and put them in an action state, ready to buy. So before I would even present the offer, the prospect had already made a decision to make the purchase and making my life a hell of a lot easier. And so the second portion of this is we role-played this framework and every variation of it. And the goal of this step was to put myself in every possible sales scenario on role plays so that when it was time for me to get placed on an offer, I would be ready and confident to handle any situation on a real sales call. And guys, this is actually it. This is the new and improved sales structure that I use and still use to this day. Now, guys, I'm not gonna go through this in depth and read every single sentence here. You guys can pause it, screenshot it, take it, run away and use it, but I'm just gonna briefly skim over it. So, intro. The main thing here is not to sound like a salesperson. Be human, be yourself, smile, crack a joke. The second part is agenda. This is when you take control of the conversation, okay? And you let the prospect know how the call is gonna go, all right? You can ask them a couple questions, get to know them and see if and how you can help them. And if you can, you'll show them how. Situational, here you're finding pain points, points of commonality, you're building trust, you're building rapport. After that, you move on to vision. Right? So we figure out where they are. Now that we want to find out where they want to go, right? And the goal is to have them paint the picture of what their life would actually look like if they achieved their goals with your program. Challenge. So this is after we figured out what's challenge. So now that you understand where your prospect is and where they want to go, now it's time to understand what's been holding them back. And this is very, very important because you need to understand everything that's been holding them back, because if you don't, it's going to come back as an objection. Consequential questions is basically showing them what will happen if they don't make a change, right? And that really puts them in an urgency state. Showing the gap. So it's time to repeat back everything that they've told you to let them know you've been listening, because that builds a tremendous amount of trust. Gaining commitments. This is when, if they said, for example, they were uncomfortable making a change, this is where you gauge commitment and ask them if they're really at a point to make a change. Self-solution selling is asking the prospect what they need from us in order to give them the confidence to be successful. And then from whatever they tell you from step 9, you tailor that into your presentation, which is usually given to you by most offers you sell on. And next steps will be collect the payment, set up the one-on-one onboarding strategy call, and complete the sale. Previously, in my last sales role, I was doing calls with no structure, right? And obviously my closing rate was suffering greatly from it. By the way, guys, I'm gonna be making a full video about this 10-step framework, so you guys can go check it out. It'll be an in-depth review, questions, why I ask these questions, so you get a better understanding of how you can use it. Now, the second I applied this framework, it gave these calls more structure and intention as to how they were being run. And it completely changed my perspective on what a good, skilled salesperson is. Not pushy, not arrogant, someone who actually cares to find out what their prospect wants and needs are, right? So, and then you tailor a solution exactly for them. And no wonder why I always felt uptight and anxious. There was no structure. And if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So my close rate began to climb and climb. And in 2 months, I was able to get my close rate up to 50% for qualified leads. This is actually a picture of my calendar, a screenshot of my calendar of the week of May 17th, 2021. It was a crazy week, probably my biggest week that year. I made $87,000 in sales, and about 10% of that was my commissions. And this was my only break here. This was my only break. And I did this again and again, but there was a lot of money on the table and I wanted all of it. Role playing every sales scenario. So understanding how to close is completely different than being able to close. Every day, sales companies throw their reps into the fire and have them figure out everything on their own without any proper training. This is a recipe for wasted leads, destroyed confidence, and millions in uncollected cash. I told my mentor I wanted to be making 10K a month before I left the other sales job. So we outlined the exact parameters for me to practice within so I could confidently close deals consistently. So he connected me with some of his closers who would act as a realistic customer, and I would role play for an hour a day. And I role played every single possible buyer type and objection and make sure that I was confident on my first day of placement, and this way the trial and error happened with nothing on the line. And so there are 4 types of buyers to understand. Again, guys, I'm gonna skim through this quickly, but feel free to screenshot and save this and watch it later. But the key thing to know here is that every lead is motivated by a pain or pleasure, okay? They're moving towards a goal or away from a pain, and they're fast-paced, they know what they want, or they're slow-paced because they have some limiting beliefs, and you'll need to take a little bit more time raising their belief level. Landing a client. So before I started working with my mentor, I spent a painful few months reaching out to online offers through Facebook groups, Instagram DMs with no luck, only to find myself being trained and placed on a non-existent offer with leads I had to buy, right? So, and I got 2 types of responses when I did reach out to these influencers. And the ones with big brands just left me unseen. And the few that did respond to me asked me if I had any track record, and I had none. And the only offers that responded to me are the ones that were in desperate need for closers to sell their stuff. And that's a clue that there's a reason why these offers don't have closers. And the only way for someone like me who had a lot of potential but no track record to find a lucrative high ticket offer to sell for was to leverage someone else's reputation. And the reason why I say I have a lot of potential, because at my students and parents teachers, that's all that my teachers told my parents. He has a lot of potential. So that's when I found a mentor. The main reason why I connected with him, with Dylan, because I wanted to be on the right boat. And for me to be able to hit a target of 20K a month within 3 months, I needed an offer with these 4 things: a high volume of warm qualified leads, great commission structure, 6 figures in monthly high ticket sales that the company's already making, and top-notch systems and delivery. And that way I could plug in straight and start netting strong commissions right away. And equally important to me, guys, was finding a client that actually aligned with my strengths, my personality, and my values, so I could actually build a long-term career rather than selling for some shitty info offer that would burn out in 3 to 6 months. And a few weeks later, I got trained, Dylan found me an offer, and little did I know, it was Tai Lopez, and I was his first closer. He was selling an e-commerce coaching program, teaching people how to drop ship, how to grow their online stores revenue to 100K a month. The positioning of the offer was a no-brainer. Lead quality was top-notch. The positioning of the offer was a no-brainer. And this was the first time that Tai Lopez had a sales team and people were dying to work with them. I crushed it right away, earning $4,500 in my first month, working 20 hours a week. And at this point, I've seen enough. I told my boss to kick rocks and I went full-time. That month, I brought in $16,000 in commissions. And the month after, I worked on my weak points and made a little bit over $23,000. I quintupled my income in 2 months after starting. And here's how. I took more calls and I turned my weaknesses into strengths. So taking more calls. After making $4,500 in my first month working part-time hours, I had the evidence I needed to go all in. And this was the money-making math for my first month. So I had 6 calls booked a day in my calendar. 1 person would show up. I'll talk to 5 people and close 1. That was about 20% closing rate, which is average for somebody starting. If you do the math, that's $250 a day, 5 days a week, and that's about 5K a month. I think I was like 2 sales short from 5K. So I left my old job and I started working 8-hour days. This took my daily lead flow from 5 book calls to 10 to 15. All right. And the biggest hurdle for me was keeping my energy up on every single call back to back. The thing is, in sales, you're not paid by the hour. It's not enough just to show up on the calls, right? There's 2 metrics of inputs. 1, amounts of calls taken, and 2, levels of enthusiasm, intent, and empathy. One can be tracked and the other one not as much. And anybody can do the calls. What separates a top closer from the bottom feeders is a level of investment into every single individual that they speak with. And in order for me to hit my goal of 20K a month, this was crucial. So second part of how I increased my sales, turning my weaknesses into strengths. So in my first month of selling my offer, I was hovering around 1K a week, right? Consistency will get you halfway. However, constant attention to your growth will get you across the finish line. And in my case, I've already made the decision to master sales and become the student of the game. Understand that sales is like a sport. And if you want to be good, you need a coach. You need someone who can point out the things that you can't see, like your form, your technique, or other weaknesses that you can't see. And in this sport, you get paid a lot of fucking money when you get good. And that's why on weekends, I would constantly travel 4 hours from my city in Ottawa back and forth to Toronto just for Dylan and I to sit down for 30 minutes so he can listen to my calls and give me feedback. Right? And as a result, my time frame happened to be shorter than most. Closing more deals without doing more calls is much simpler than people make it to be. All you need to do is just figure out one customer type that you struggle with and turn those missed deals into fat commission checks, right? And to emphasize this once again, as a closer, your job is to become a master of presenting the exact program to the exact customer. And to emphasize this once again, as a closer, your job is to become a master of presenting the exact same program to the exact same customer. You get to practice this conversation over and over again. You get to have these conversations hundreds of thousands of times. They only get it once. And only thing that's stopping you from closing above a 50% close rate is your own attention to your growth. And the ultimate challenge that I needed to conquer to break past the 20K month was a fast-paced move away buyer, right? I kept on getting prospects who were motivated by moving away from a specific situation or pain and knew exactly what they wanted from the call, right? And this might seem like an easier buyer to deal with, and it really is when you know how to handle them. And there's 2 reasons why these are good prospects. These are logical buyers looking for a clear and predictable solution to get out of their current situation. And you don't need to build any urgency because the pain that they have is real. And there's 2 more reasons why these are difficult for the average salesperson is because it's harder for people to pick up on their pain points. And secondly, these types of prospects will always want to get to the point, right? And over the next few minutes, I'm going to explain the 2 changes that we made to my calls with this type of prospect that allowed me to 5x my commissions within 2 months, okay? Finding pain points for this type of buyer. Guys, if you're watching, keep your energy up. Let's go. The majority of leads were people tired of working their 9 to 5s. Okay, so they were moving away from a pain, right? So usually they're unhappy, they're not fulfilled, they don't have time with family, right? So, and they're very uncomfortable where they are. So you don't have to build a lot of urgency. They're ready to take action. And I was struggling like finding these pain points, right? Because I couldn't listen to subtle cues and I didn't build enough rapport because you need to build enough rapport for somebody to open up to you, right? So I'm not gonna read through this, but I'm just gonna show you the main points. If you guys wanna, again, pause and screenshot this, watch it later, you can, because I don't want this video to be more than an hour. So really a prospect would be like, I'm burnt out with this job, right? And I would usually just skip and go to the next question. But this is your chance to dig deep and be like, what do you mean by burnt out? And that's when they start opening up like crazy. And then they say like, I've been working overtime, I'm tired, I have no more energy with my wife and my kids, and I don't feel like a man anymore. And that's when you start showing empathy and you build more trust, and the deal is done here. Not with the pitch, not with the terms of the contract, but it's closed by the pains that we're reminding the prospect of and reminding them why they need to make a change, right? The deal is closed the moment urgency is introduced into the call. Taking and keeping authority on the call. I kept on getting prospects who were like, to the point, like, hey, Rome, I'm a straight shooter. Can you just tell me what the offer is? Tell me what you're offering, right? And I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I don't want to piss anybody off. So I would skip the whole framework and just say the price. And as you can imagine, this would result in a multitude of, and as you can imagine, there would be a ton of questions at the end and many follow-ups that never came through. And I realized that that doesn't work, right? And to close a lead on one call consistently and predictably, you need to maintain an authority frame throughout the whole conversation. Just like a doctor. When you walk into the office, the doctor asks you a couple of questions to get to know exactly what to prescribe you. It's the same thing in sales. And here's exactly how I held authority on the call with these types of prospects to one call close them every time. Again, I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, but I'm gonna show you the main points, right? So they would say, Rom, I'm a straight shooter. How much does it cost? And I would say, listen, I love the enthusiasm, but at this point, it costs $0. They're like, what do you mean? And I would say, listen, I would be doing you a disservice if I were to go ahead and tell you about my program without even knowing if it's even for you, right? And usually they would always agree and you would continue on with your framework. 3C, creating a career as a closer. My commissions quickly rose above 20K a month after applying these key adjustments to my calls. And most people will get complacent and satisfied and just stay where they are. I doubled down on my growth as a closer because I knew that would set me apart and set me up for a lucrative and long-term career. Not only did my bankroll get bigger in 90 days, I started experiencing huge changes in my confidence and my self-esteem. And I started to get my way with life more in all aspects. So training and self-reflection never stopped for me. I kept growing month after month, started stepping into leadership role after leadership role. And in a matter of months, growing team after team, earning a cut from my sales team on top of my own commissions, surpassing 30K months in a year. To this day, I still have Dylan coaching me to increase sales and helping me level up in all aspects, not just as a closer, but as a leader, as a business owner, and a human being. I decided to seize the opportunity in front of me and went hard on my training and growth even after I hit my goal. And I firmly believe that's the reason why I am where I am today. It's not rocket science. You know what you have to do to lose weight or gain muscle. Eat well and go to the gym consistently. Same with sales. It is no different. All it takes is discipline and having the right vehicle. To recap, I saw the potential and what was possible of being a high-ticket remote closer selling educational offers. However, I always feared talking to people. I had no prior experience, no skill, or the reputation to land a good offer. I spent months in the DMs of different influencers and landed a seemingly promising position as a closer only to go by my own leads. And after training the 7-figure script framework, now called the Millionaire Closer Framework, on role plays and practicing all lead types, Dylan was able to leverage his network and reputation to place me on an offer that was already doing multiple 8 figures a year, which didn't even have a closer. Right? So after my first month of calls, I went full-time and worked closely with Dylan, turning my weaknesses that stopped me from closing more into strengths. Before I found this opportunity, I was in a robe filled with sweat from stress of calling scope leads that were colder than my ex's heart for 12-hour days, stressing out about how I would pay my rent. 90 days later, I had netted over 40K in commissions. Did I get 10 times better in a matter of 3 months? No. Did I have to work inhumane hours? No. Remember the quote, it's not how hard you row, it's what boat you're on. I was simply on a faster boat. And since then, my commissions grew, clearing well over $500,000 in commissions in under 2 years. And you wanna know what happened after I started bringing in 200K a month in sales? Not only did Ty Lopez take the extra revenue and pump it back into ads to 10x the lead flow, but I was put into a leadership role to manage all the reps and I made a commission off of their closes. Most importantly though, my lifestyle changed, the way I talked, the way I walked was different. And if you're making this type of money, it would be a shame if you don't buy a car like this. And my younger self would have been super disappointed if I didn't buy a McLaren. So that's exactly what I did, and you should too. I used to be anxious and socially awkward. I would dread the silence of being in an elevator with somebody else. Now, I can't wait to go out of my house and see another human's face and smile and say hello. This had brought me confidence that I never knew I could attain. Not only did the money help me, but the communication and people skills that came with it changed my life In a matter of just a few months, I've completely changed the trajectory of my life and career. This is the power of the combination of a lucrative sales opportunity and advanced communication training can be. Now that you understand exactly how this process works, I have an offer for you. If you're a closer, aspiring closer, or a sales rep, or even a person with good communication skills looking to leverage their skill set, and you want to become a high-performing remote closer, never spend a dime on leads, build a multi-six-figure income while working on your own schedule, and work from anywhere around the world just using your phone and your laptop, we'll help you master the Millionaire Closer framework and place you on a seven-figure offer so we can replicate this exact process for you and see similar results to myself and the other students I've mentioned in a fraction of the time that it would take you to do it on your own. And if you want to see similar results and want the same level of training and placement, hit the application link in the description below and book a call with myself or my team for a walkthrough on how our system works. And if it's a good fit, we'll talk about how we can work together. In worst case scenario, guys, if it's not a good fit, we'll just spill the red wine on our white shirt, we'll call it a day, and I'll point you in the right direction to the best of my knowledge. Looking forward to speaking with you soon. Ciao.